August 10th, 2025. The sun blazed over Oceanland Marine Park, turning the show pool into a mirror of light. Thousands filled the stands, eyes fixed on the stage where Jessica Radcliffe, calm and confident, stood beside Kate, a 6-ton orca she had worked with for nearly 10 years. To the audience, it was beauty and trust made flesh, the perfect dance between woman and whale. But beneath that glassy surface, something far older than trust was stirring. Orcas are apex predators, their senses honed by millions of years to detect the faintest trace of prey. And on this day, Kate's focus was sharper, her movements slower, her circles tighter. She had caught something in the water, a scent so faint no human could notice, but to her, it was a signal written in blood. In the open ocean, it would have meant only one thing: the hunt had begun. Within minutes, the cheers would turn to screams, the routine to chaos, and Jessica Radcliffe's name would be etched forever into the list of those who learned, too late, that the wild never truly forgets what it is. If you were standing there, would you have sensed it? Tell us in the comments. The bond between Jessica Radcliffe and the orca named Kate had been forged in the still, turquoise depths of Oceanland's main pool and tested in front of roaring crowds. For nearly a decade, they had moved together like two parts of the same current. Jessica with her calm, deliberate grace. Kate with her raw, fluid power. It was a connection that others in the marine park world envied, a silent language of glances, gestures, and the faintest motions of a hand. Jessica was not like the trainers who thrived on spectacle alone. She treated every session not as a show to be conquered, but as a conversation to be earned. Kate responded in kind, a 6-ton apex predator whose intelligence radiated in the subtle flick of a tail or the slow, measured blink of an eye. Together, they created moments that seemed to dissolve the boundaries between human and wild. Spectators often described their performances as magic. Kate would erupt from the water in an arc so perfect that the droplets shimmered like glass in the afternoon sun, while Jessica stood poised on her back, hair whipping in the spray. The music would swell, the crowd would rise to their feet, and for a few suspended seconds, it felt as if trust alone had conquered nature's most formidable hunter. Yet beneath every leap and bow was a truth Jessica knew better than anyone. Trust was fragile. Orcas were not domesticated companions. They were born to hunt, to roam oceans without borders, to follow instincts as ancient as the tide. She had seen flashes of that primal nature before. A sudden snap at a floating object, a deep rumbling call that vibrated through the water like a warning from the deep. Still, Jessica believed in Kate. She believed that the years they had spent together, the countless hours of training, the quiet moments between shows, the recognition in Kate's dark, glassy eye, had built something solid, something unshakable. She did not yet know that all bonds, no matter how strong, live in the shadow of instinct. And instinct, once stirred, does not ask for permission. October 6th arrived under a cloudless sky, the kind of golden afternoon that seemed made for spectacle. The grandstands of Oceanland Marine Park were packed tight, the air buzzing with conversation, the smell of popcorn and salt water mingling in the breeze. Children pressed their faces to the railings, clutching cotton candy, their voices tumbling over one another in excitement. Behind the scenes, Jessica Radcliffe prepared as she always did, methodically, without hurry. She slid into her wetsuit, checked her dive belt, and ran her fingers along the laminated cue cards, more out of habit than necessity. Today's show was Ocean Pulse, the park's crown jewel. She'd performed it hundreds of times. And yet, as she stepped toward the holding pool where Kate waited, something subtle shifted in the air. Kate surfaced in a slow, deliberate motion, her massive head breaking the water with barely a ripple. Her eyes locked on Jessica instantly, that deep, unreadable black that seemed to hold the weight of the ocean itself. She hovered there longer than usual, drawing in a deep breath through her blowhole before slipping beneath the surface again. Jessica smiled, thinking nothing of it. She didn't notice the way Kate's passes grew slower, closer, circling just beneath the platform. Nor could she hear the soft exhalations, deliberate, searching, as Kate tasted the water around her. Orcas had no sense of smell in air, but in the water, their ability to detect the faintest trace of blood was unparalleled. And today, there was blood, imperceptible to the humans on deck, but to Kate, it was a whisper from another world. Sharp, metallic, unmistakable. In the open sea, it would have meant only one thing: prey. The music swelled, the gate opened, and Kate glided into the show pool with deceptive calm. The first cues went flawlessly: breaches, spy hops, tail slaps that sent shimmering sheets of water over the front rows. The crowd roared, unaware of the growing focus in Kate's movements, the way she kept returning to Jessica's side, as though tethered by something more than routine. It was instinct now, ancient, coiled, and waiting. And like a storm gathering beyond the horizon, it would only take a shift in the wind for everything to change. What would you do, standing on the edge of that pool, if you realized the creature you trusted most was no longer looking at you as a partner, but as prey? Tell us in the comments below. The opening minutes of Ocean Pulse unfolded like clockwork. Kate's immense body cut through the water with the precision of a blade, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. She breached high, twisting mid-air before crashing back into the pool, sending a curtain of spray over the cheering crowd. To anyone watching, it was perfection. But Jessica sensed something different beneath the surface. Between each trick, Kate lingered close, her dorsal fin slicing slow arcs around the platform. Her gaze never left Jessica, not the scanning curiosity of a partner awaiting the next cue, but an unbroken stare, as if measuring her in ways that had nothing to do with performance. Jessica adjusted her gestures, softening her movements, using the subtle cues that usually reassured Kate. The Orca responded, but with a fraction of the usual ease, as though following out of habit rather than trust. Twice, Jessica noticed Kate breaking formation, veering just wide of her mark, circling back with deliberate slowness. From the stands, the deviations were invisible. The music masked the pauses. The applause drowned any tension. Yet on the trainer deck, a junior staff member frowned, leaning forward. Kate's pectoral fins were angled low, her tail pumping in measured bursts, a hunter's rhythm. Jessica tried to shake off the unease. She had spent years with Kate, guiding her through everything from medical checks to the most complex routines. They'd shared moments few people could understand, quiet underwater glides where their movements mirrored perfectly, where Jessica swore she could feel the Orca's trust in the water around her. Still, that trust felt thinner now, fragile, and deep in Kate's dark eyes, there was something shifting, like a shadow moving beneath the tide, a reminder that the ocean's predators never truly forget what they are. The final act was meant to be their triumph, the move that had made Jessica and Kate famous. It began with a simple signal. Jessica's right arm swept upward, her fingers slicing the air like a wave crest. Kate was to dive deep, surge upward, and lift her trainer high into the sunlit spray. The crowd would erupt. Cameras would capture the perfect frame. But Kate did not dive. She hovered instead, just below the surface, her massive head tilted slightly, watching Jessica in silence. For a moment, the pause was so brief, it might have been missed. The music swelled. The audience leaned forward, waiting for the cue to resolve. Jessica gave the signal again, this time paired with the verbal command. Kate sank from view. Relief flickered through Jessica. Perhaps the Orca had simply delayed, but the next instant shattered that hope. From the deep blue below, Kate rose with explosive speed, a black and white missile erupting from the depths. Her rostrum struck Jessica from beneath, hurling her several feet into the air. Gasps rippled through the stands. Some clapped, thinking it part of the choreography. Jessica hit the water hard, the impact knocking the breath from her chest. Before she could orient herself, a shadow closed in beneath her. Then the grip, unyielding, crushing, clamped around her torso. Kate's jaws locked, and with a surge of raw muscle, she dragged Jessica downward. The noise above became muffled, swallowed by the heavy silence of the deep. Jessica's hands pressed against Kate's head, pushing, signaling the release cue. But the Orca didn't respond. Instead, Kate twisted, rolling them both through the water in a slow, deliberate spiral. It was not the chaotic thrash of fear. It was control, the measured precision of a predator asserting dominance. On the trainer deck, emergency signals blared. A senior handler knelt at the edge, hammering the recall buzzer. The low-frequency pings pulsed through the pool, but Kate ignored them, her focus locked entirely on the woman in her grip. Jessica's lungs burned. She knew the drills. Stay calm, conserve oxygen, wait for the release. But panic coiled inside her chest. The water around her grew colder, darker. Her limbs felt heavy, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. Then Kate shifted direction, propelling them upward. Light broke above, and Jessica's head breached the surface for one desperate breath, just as Kate yanked her back down with a violent jerk. This time, the pull was deeper, faster, more final. From the stands, the illusion was gone. Screams rose in place of cheers. Children cried as parents shielded their eyes. Phones recorded trembling footage that would never be shown on the park's official channels. Below the surface, Jessica's vision narrowed, her signals weakening. Kate's grip remained ironclad. The water pressed in from all sides, the world reduced to cold, crushing blue, and the relentless force of the animal she had once called her partner. And somewhere, deep in that darkness, instinct, silent, ancient, and absolute, had taken full command. The world beneath the surface was a place Jessica knew well, a place of shimmering blues, refracted light, and the steady heartbeat of the ocean. But now, it was stripped of its beauty, reduced to a dark, suffocating cage. Kate's grip was unrelenting, her teeth pressing into the thick neoprene of Jessica's wetsuit, the pressure radiating deep into bone and muscle. The Orca's immense body moved with terrifying control. Each sweep of her tail sent them surging deeper, the light above shrinking to a thin silver haze. Jessica kicked hard, her hands pushing at Kate's rostrum, trying the trained release cues. A tap, a twist, a push. Nothing. Kate's black eyes were inches away, unreadable, cold, ancient. The water pressed against Jessica's eardrums. Her chest screamed for air, the need to breathe becoming a white-hot panic in her mind. Tiny bubbles escaped her lips as she tried to hold on. Above the roar of her own pulse, she could hear it, the deep, resonant clicks of Kate's echolocation. It was as though the Orca was studying her, mapping every inch of her body, feeling her struggle, her weakening movements. Then came the turn. Kate rolled them sideways, pulling Jessica along in a wide, deliberate arc. Her pectoral fins brushed past Jessica's ribs, a predator's caress, before she jerked her prey into a sudden burst of speed. The water stung Jessica's face. Her limbs felt heavier with every second. From above, distorted through the water, came the hollow clang of the emergency chime. Trainers leaned over the deck, shouting commands, slapping the surface, sending recall tones through the pool. But the signals were meaningless here. Kate's world was not one of rules or routines anymore. It was governed by something older, something wired into her very blood. Jessica's vision began to dim at the edges. Her lungs convulsed, desperate to draw breath, but she forced them to hold a little longer. A flicker of light appeared above as Kate carried her upward. Hope flared. But just as they neared the surface, Kate whipped her body in a tight roll, dragging Jessica sideways and down again. The second descent was faster, more violent. The pressure built in Jessica's head. Her arms felt like lead. She no longer had the strength to signal. Her body went slack for a moment, drifting in Kate's jaws. And then, in a horrifying shift, the water around them began to cloud. A dark red bloom unfurled from somewhere beneath her wetsuit, swirling like smoke in the current. Kate's response was immediate. The grip tightened. Her movements sharpened. It was no longer just control. It was the reflex of a hunter sensing the end. Far above, the audience's screams blurred into a single, unbroken wail. Below, the pool had become an alien world, cold and merciless, where the rules of partnership had dissolved, and only instinct remained. When Kate finally broke the surface, she did not release her hold. Water exploded around them, cascading into the front rows, but the crowd's cheers had vanished, replaced by a rising chorus of screams. Jessica's body was limp in the Orca's jaws, her hair plastered to her face, eyes closed against the blinding sun. On the trainer deck, chaos erupted. Two senior handlers leaned over the pool, slamming their palms against the water in sharp, commanding rhythms. Another pounded the emergency recall button, sending a piercing tone through the water, the signal that had always brought Kate back before. This time, she ignored it. Kate rolled, pulling Jessica under again, vanishing into the dark blue. Gasps and sobs rippled through the stands. Parents gathered their children, turning them away from the sight. Phones were held aloft, some shaking, capturing every terrible second. Then, with a sudden surge, Kate rose once more. Jessica slipped free, floating motionless on her back. Trainers dove in instantly, their wetsuits slicing through the water as they reached her. One grasped her shoulders, the other supported her head, towing her swiftly toward the platform. They hauled her onto the deck, water spilling from her mouth in shallow streams. Her wetsuit was torn, deep bruises already blooming across her ribs and abdomen. A medic knelt beside her, starting chest compressions, his hands moving in desperate rhythm. Another trainer tilted her head back, delivering breaths between the compressions, their shouts of "Come on, Jess!" cutting through the din. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The audience was being ushered out, their footsteps and murmurs fading, but the poolside remained a storm of urgency. Kate floated in the center, watching in eerie stillness, her dorsal fin casting a black shadow across the water. After more than 10 minutes of relentless effort, the lead medic looked up, his expression already telling the truth. The calls for equipment quieted. The hands pressing on Jessica's chest slowed and stopped. The only sound left was the soft lapping of water against the platform and the unbearable silence that followed. In the hours after Jessica's death, Oceanland Marine Park fell into an unnatural stillness. The music that had filled the air was silenced, the stands empty, the scent of salt water and chlorine now tinged with something heavier. Grief. Trainers moved like ghosts through the back corridors, their eyes hollow, their words clipped to whispers. Kate was moved to a medical holding pool, separated from view. She floated near the surface, motionless except for the slow rise and fall of her body. To the untrained eye, she looked calm. But those who had worked with her for years saw something else, an unreadable tension, as if the act itself had left an imprint even she could not erase. The investigation began almost immediately. Officials combed through safety protocols, reviewing every angle of the performance. Theories surfaced: a misread cue, stress from captivity, or the most controversial, that the scent of blood from Jessica's menstrual cycle had awakened the predator in Kate. Marine biologists debated fiercely, some calling it a tragic inevitability when wild instincts meet human proximity, others insisting it could have been prevented. Outside the gates, a makeshift memorial grew. Flowers, candles, handwritten notes, and photographs of Jessica with Kate lined the entrance. Visitors knelt in silence. Children placed stuffed orcas among the tributes. Activists held signs demanding Kate's release, while others argued she would never survive in the wild after a lifetime in captivity. The park announced an indefinite suspension of all water-based performances. Behind closed doors, discussions turned to liability, public image, and the uncomfortable question of whether this tragedy could happen again. In the end, no official footage was ever released. No one could fully explain the moment when trust dissolved into instinct. Some called it an accident, others called it a warning. But for those who had been there, it was something they would never forget. The day a partnership built over years was broken in seconds, and the line between human and predator vanished beneath the surface. Do you believe this was fate, or a disaster we chose not to prevent? Share your thoughts below. Jessica Radcliffe's story is not just about the loss of a gifted trainer. It's about the fragile balance between trust and instinct, between the beauty of connection and the danger of forgetting what lies beneath. For nearly a decade, she believed in Kate's loyalty, in the bond they had forged through patience and respect. And perhaps, for a time, that belief was true. But the ocean's predators carry a truth older than our understanding, one that surfaces without warning and without mercy. Oceanland's pool now stands silent. The echoes of applause have faded, replaced by questions that have no easy answers. Was this a tragedy no one could have foreseen, or the inevitable outcome of placing wild power in a controlled stage? Kate still drifts in her isolated pool, her dark eyes revealing nothing. Jessica's name lives on through memorials and memories, but the final chapter between them was written in water, in blood, and in silence. And so we leave you with this. When we choose to cross the boundary between human and predator, are we embracing wonder or tempting fate? Tell us what you believe in the comments, and let Jessica's story be a lesson we never forget.